Bonjour, good day. My name is Mark Gauthier, and I'm the administrator of the ShipSource Oil Pollution Fund, also known as the SHIP Fund, as well as the administrator of the Fund for Railway Accidents Involving Designated Goods, the Rail Fund for short. Thank you for joining us today on this important announcement from both our funds. Steve Anderson, my colleague, Deputy Administrator of the Rail Fund, will say a few words in English, and then I will have the pleasure to proceed in French. And after we are done our presentations, there will be an opportunity for questions. Steve, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Mark. Let me start off by saying that every day, millions of liters of oil are either used or transported by ship, boat, and rail in Canada. As a result, for our communities along waterways and rail lines, there is always the risk of spills and accidents. Thanks to Canada's polluter pays principle, anyone affected, including taxpayers, are protected from bearing the cost of damages, losses, and response efforts. Unfortunately, Canadians have been unaware of who we are and the compensation that we could provide during their times of need. For years, we operated as two separate organizations with names too long to remember. Combined with the challenges of a global pandemic, this made it difficult to establish a strong brand recognition that truly connects with Canadians. This is why we are proud to launch Ship and Rail Compensation Canada today. It is Canada's central hub for anyone affected by oil spills from ships or boats, and also major railway accidents involving crude oil. It is formed by the merger of two funds on an administrative level into one single federal office. With this new brand, we are ready to reach more people than ever before. From Newfoundland to Vancouver Island, passing through the prairies into Iqaluit, we will engage with all levels of government, businesses, emergency responders, and of course, Indigenous communities. We all know when disaster strikes, the pressing question on everyone's mind is compensation available? Will there be enough to support me and my family? And what about compensation for local businesses and to restore the environment? We are determined to help answer these questions long before oil spills or major rail accidents occur by making preparedness and compensation the priority. For instance, the SHIP Fund received 41 claims last year, a new record in its 35-year existence, and resulting in a total of $1.2 million paid out to claimants. Of course, we want to keep the momentum going, and we aim to increase the number and diversity of claimants in the upcoming years. Despite our successes, we recognize there's more work to be done, and our team is up to the challenge. Now for the Rail Fund. Today's announcement marks an important milestone since our inception, following the tragic Lac-Mégantic accident in 2013. Those who suffer losses after a major railway accident involving crude oil shouldn't have to stress about who to approach and where to turn to for compensation. Losing your homes, maybe even your loved ones, and worrying about long-term health effects is devastating enough. Today, the launch of Ship and Rail Compensation Canada is not about us simply changing our name. We are also launching a brand new website that is easy to find, navigate, and provides clarity on how to submit a claim. In the end, we are committed to making sure Canadians know us, remember us, and ultimately receive the financial support when they need it most. As I close, let me take the time to thank you all for being here today, both in the room and online, And by doing so, you're playing a vital role in making Canada more resilient. So let's spread the word to ensure that victims don't have to bear the financial burden of pollution. And now it's my pleasure to hand it back to our administrator, Mark Gauthier. Mark?
Merci d'avoir commencé en anglais, Steve, et je vais maintenant procéder avec mes remarques en français. Chaque jour, des millions de litres d'hydrocarbures sont transportés ou utilisés par des navires, par des bateaux et par des trains au Canada. Ces activités comportent toujours un risque de déversement ou d'accident pour les collectivités proches des voies navigables et des voies ferrées. Grâce au principe du pollueur-payeur, qui est d'ailleurs en vigueur au Canada, les personnes touchées et les contribuables ne devraient pas avoir à supporter des coûts liés aux dommages, aux pertes et aux efforts d'intervention. Malheureusement, un bon nombre de Canadiennes et de Canadiens ne nous connaissent pas et ne savent pas que nous existons pour offrir une aide financière en cas de besoin. Pendant des années, nous avons fonctionné comme deux organisations distinctes, avec des noms longs et difficiles à prononcer. Combiné avec les défis de la pandémie mondiale, il a été difficile de créer une marque forte qui parle vraiment aux Canadiens. C'est pourquoi nous sommes fiers de lancer Indemnisation Navire et Rail Canada aujourd'hui. C'est le nouveau centre d'indemnisation canadien pour toute personne touchée par des déversements d'hydrocarbures provenant de navires ou de bateaux ou par des accidents ferroviaires majeurs qui impliquent du pétrole brut. Elle en est le résultat de la fusion sur le plan administratif des deux fonds en un seul bureau fédéral. Avec cette nouvelle marque, nous pourrons joindre plus de personnes que jamais. De Terre-Neuve à l'île de Vancouver, en passant par les prairies jusqu'à Iqaluit, nous collaborerons avec tous les paliers de gouvernement, toutes les entreprises, les intervenants d'urgence et surtout les communautés autochtones. Nous savons que lorsqu'une catastrophe survient, les questions urgentes qui se posent sont: est-ce que je pourrai recevoir une indemnisation? Sera-t-elle suffisante pour subvenir à mes besoins et à ceux de ma famille? Est-ce qu'il y aura de l'indemnisation pour les entreprises locales, ainsi que pour restaurer l'environnement? Nous sommes déterminés à répondre à ces questions bien avant qu'un déversement d'hydrocarbures ou qu'un accident ferroviaire majeur ne se produise, en donnant la priorité sur l'état de préparation et à l'indemnisation. Par exemple, le Fonds Navire a reçu 41 réclamations l'an dernier, un nouveau record depuis sa création il y a 35 ans, et versé des sommes totalisant 1,2 million de dollars aux demandeurs. Nous voulons donc maintenir cet élan et augmenter le nombre et la diversité des demandeurs. Malgré nos réussites, il reste encore beaucoup de travail à faire. Pour le Fonds Rail, l'annonce aujourd'hui marque une étape importante depuis notre création à la suite de la tragédie du lac Mégantic survenue en 2013. Les personnes qui subissent des pertes après un accident ferroviaire majeur impliquant du pétrole brut ne devraient pas avoir à se préoccuper de savoir et ou comment accéder à l'indemnisation. Perdre sa maison et parfois même un être cher ou s'inquiéter sur les effets sur la santé longue est suffisamment terrible. Aujourd'hui, le lancement d'indemnisation Navire et Rail Canada n'est pas simplement un changement de nom. Nous lançons également un tout nouveau site Web qui est facile à trouver, à naviguer et qui explique clairement comment soumettre une réclamation au fond. En fin de compte, Nous nous engageons à s'assurer que les Canadiennes et les Canadiens nous connaissent, se souviennent de nous et reçoivent une aide financière lorsqu'ils en ont le plus besoin. Merci de votre présence aujourd'hui, tant dans la salle que devant vos écrans. Ce faisant, vous jouez un rôle crucial pour rendre le Canada plus résilient. Faisons donc passer le message pour s'assurer que les victimes n'aient pas à souffrir le fardeau financier de la pollution. Et maintenant, passons à vos questions. And now we will have a question and answer period. Thank you.
Natasha Belowski, Canada's National Observer. I have a couple extra questions as well, so if there's time later, maybe I can add some more. But first of all, what spurred this rebranding? Why now, and how long did it take to get to the point where you're ready to launch this?
Thank you for the question, madam. I would say that we've probably been working on our relaunching for a good 2 years. And since compensation of victims is our mission, communication to those potential victims is our lifeline. And since we have noticed from research and from our own observations that we are literally unknown by the general public, we thought that there had to be a way and a means to improve that situation. And I perhaps said earlier in my remarks that our names are awkward, extremely awkward, because they stem from the legislation, which is completely understandable. But from a communications point of view, it was highly desirable to effect those changes. And of course, we put a suite of measures together, not just the name change. I mean, there was a great deal of work done in conceiving that, and of course the logos and everything goes with it. But also we upgraded our website, and we prepared communications materials, a whole suite of documents to assist us in this endeavor. So the short answer is over 2 years, and the long answer I just gave you. Thank you.
And if you have, either of you feel free to, jump in on these questions. But just to follow up on some of these other changes beyond the website and the renaming, I'm not as familiar with the fund, but is there any difference, in how funds are going to be distributed or the amount that's available to claimants? Any sort of changes on that front?
I'll fill that one as well, if I may. From a legislative point of view, the answer is there are no changes. In other words, in order to accomplish this mission of rebranding on our part, it's a purely administrative matter. The legislation remains the same. So the rules for compensation, who qualifies, how much, where do the funds come from, etc., is all governed by, on the one hand, for the Ship Fund by the Marine Liability Act, and for the Rail Fund by the Canada Transportation Act. Fairly substantial pieces of legislation that have not been altered in order to accomplish the rebranding, nor is there any need to. Thank you.
On those administrative changes, though, are there anything being done to streamline the process? Again, I'm not familiar with the process as it is now, but are there any administrative changes that you've made to make it easier, or for people to navigate that process?
Well, go ahead,
please, go
Steve. Yeah, well, likely the website would be the most critical improvement that we've put up. It's a brand new website, and it's a website that has to address these two distinct funds, though similar in many respects. It could be said that the Rail Fund, in fact, was modeled on the Ship Fund, and it was in some measure, with differences applicable to the two modes. But it's the website that's the source of all of this material, and we're hoping very much, the website is launched indeed, the new website, that it will be easy to navigate, and therefore claimants will have easy access to our claims forms, for example, and our sources of information, our manuals. We have several manuals that we have published and we're updating, and all of these are available, of course, to the public at large, particularly via our brand new website, of which we're terribly proud. Thank you.
And earlier you mentioned that both through observation and also some research, you came to the conclusion there's not high awareness of the fund. I'm wondering, are there certain regions or provinces, territories where that is particularly pronounced?
Steve?
Sure. Thank you for your question. I would say no. We've traveled quite a bit via our outreach efforts, and we found that everywhere we go, the question is, who are you guys and what service or compensation that you provide? And so that's why today's announcement is so critical to us achieving our mandate, which is in part awareness. I could tell you, though, that when they do receive that information, they do find out who we are and the services that they provide. They're very happy to receive that information. Thank you.
And one last question. I know the fund's been around, both funds have been around for a long time. Previously, what type of techniques did you use to try and notify Canadians? Was it more on an ad hoc basis when something happens? How did that work until now when you've made these changes?
The SHIP Fund was created in 1989, so it is indeed quite a while ago. And if truth be known, it was the successor to an existing fund that was not particularly active that began in 1971. The Rail Fund, on the other hand, is the new kid on the block. It was only adopted in 2016. Following Lake Megantic in 2013, the government of the day felt there was time to react, and this is often the case when some incidents occur. Especially for the magnitude of Lake Megantic, as you all know, it was nothing short of a catastrophe. In the case of rail, prior to the passage of the amendments to the Canada Transportation Act, there was no legal regime in place, quite frankly. Claimants were left to their own devices to seek compensation as best they could. Fortunately, in Lake Megantic, as you may well know, governments reacted very quickly. The Red Cross, many other helping agencies contributed to try to restore the damage suffered by the victims. But it was not on the basis of a legal regime where there was certainty of outcome. And as a matter of fact, there's still litigation pending, major litigation pending before the courts in the province of Quebec over Lake Megantic. On the ship side, on the other hand, since it's been around for quite some time, certainly my immediate predecessor and her predecessors worked very hard to do precisely what Steve was saying, to outreach to the general public, to find ways and means to educate people as to the existence of the fund. However, prior to 1989, in that hiatus period from 71 to 89, even though there was a bit of a legal regime, I don't think there was a great deal of activity on that front. It really only began when the Ship Source Oil Pollution Fund was created in 1989, and I would say increasingly from that time forward until now.
And did you take a proactive approach or a more reactive approach? Like, for example, I saw in your report one of the recent incidents in BC was with that fishing vessel that generated a large amount of claims last year. I know that's more recent, so your communication might have been more robust than like 10 years previous, but when you're aware of something like that happens, would you then go to the communities and notify them? Or, I guess I'm wondering more about the boots on the ground communication strategy in more recent years to try and get people to, become aware of and start using the fund.
Since the Rail Fund hasn't had an incident yet, I can certainly say in terms of the SHIP Fund, we are as proactive as we possibly can. We do absolutely everything in our power to get out there and get the message across. We have legal agents, we have maritime experts all across the country that are assigned to particular files, and we have our own headquarters, and we have our communications branch, which is extremely active, and we do the best we can with our resources to get the word across. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Merci. C'est ce qui conclut la conférence de presse.